Talk therapy. Sister, let's talk. Get ready for real, raw, and relevant information. We don't hold back. Topics from ministry, life, marriage, and everything in between. So, buckle up. Hold on tight. Here are your hostesses, Tara and Melody. Talk therapy. Sister, let's talk.
Welcome, you guys. We're excited. It's Talk Therapy. I am your host, Tara T. Stallings, and
I am Melody Manning. How y'all doing today?
we have a great topic for you guys today. So listen. Before you do anything else, like it and share. Make a watch party. Like it and share, because this is a topic that hits home for all of us. We're going to talk about these myths of mental health issues within the Black American culture. We're going to talk about that today. So like and share, make a watch party, share, because this topic is one that is needed and nobody's talking about until after a tragedy happens.
Yes.
We talk about the woulda, coulda, shoulda. So let's just dive into it, Melody.
Let's dive into it. And what made us want to talk about this subject on today is that there's been quite a few things that have been going on here lately that I feel that we need to talk about it. And what are some signs? How do you handle it? How do you handle it for your personal self? Not just those that you may know or those that you love or whatnot. How do you handle the different issues that you may be faced with now? Because with all of us being quarantined and being in our homes, some of us are in our homes by ourselves. And in that time, it's so easily to fall into that trap of depression and may not even realize or able to identify, that it is depression. And then there are some that are dealing with anxiety because of the things that are going on. And one thing about mental health does not have a certain look to it these days, because we all have become professionals with being able to put masks on, able to cover up things. You can speak to someone every day and may not realize that they are dealing with depression or anxiety when they're not around you. Well, let me say this. They're dealing with it when they're around you as well. They're just able to cover it up and function.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of functioning depressed people, and we have to learn to listen to what a person is not saying when they're talking. We're so quick to listen to what they're saying, but we have to also listen to what they're not actually saying as well. And we can't brush things off as to, hey, that's just them, or I know them, they wouldn't do that type of thing. We have to actually be able to recognize it and deal with it, no matter what the pain may cause in dealing with some of these issues with the approaches that we have to take from, but we have to deal with it.
Yes. And I would also add in not just depression, anxiety, and fear, but also diagnosable mental issues and disorders. We have so many people that's walking around that have mental disorders within the Black American culture, but refuse to get help because it's a stigma attached to getting help for mental instability. Now we go to the doctor, we will go and get help if we have cancer, if you got a headache, if you got high blood pressure, if you're diabetic, we will run and go and get help for that. But if it's mental, psychological issue, we will not go and get help because there's a stigma attached to, and the Black American culture, to people that have to go get help. Even I say, even with the pastors, because the first thing we tell them is go pray about it, and God gonna work it out, or go talk to your pastor or somebody in the ministry that is not educated, that has no idea what they're doing, and make a bad can sometimes, because sometimes I'm not gonna say all the time, because sometimes they can help. They can help. But a lot of times they're not educated in what your issue is. So we need to talk about that. We need to talk about how these myths are killing us, how those myths and not wanting to, and the stigma behind it is killing our culture. Our culture, where a lot of you guys know that I do own a hair salon, and the area where I am, I have a lot of homeless people that live in that area. And a lot of those people are older African American women and young African American young men. And they have mental disorders. They have them. That's why they're out on the street. They're not being treated for them. Because one, a lot of times the medication does not work. And then two, they have been thrown away from the family because it's a stigma. Oh, and I say this, Melanie, and we talked about it earlier. We have somebody in the family, have an Uncle Joe, an Aunt May, that or cousin Bob, that he just ain't quite right. That we keep in the back room, we keep him closed down, closed up, because we don't want to address the mental instability, the mental issues that he has that has never been diagnosed or never been treated, never been addressed. The only thing Big Mom says, we just God gonna work it out. We gonna pray for it. And y'all know I believe prayer works. It works. But prayer is a conversation. Sometimes when it comes to mental issues and mental health, you pray about, Lord, what do I need to do? Just like he'll tell you if you got diabetes or heart problems or high blood pressure, you pray, go to the doctor, go to the emergency room, get some help. Go to your psychotherapist, go to your life coach, go to the counselor, go to the psychiatrist, and get some help.
Yeah,
It's just like anything else.
yeah. We most definitely need to do that, and I'm glad you brought up the fact that how we can have someone in the family, and you kind of just you don't really talk about it, because what a lot of people may not realize is a lot of your mental health issues are hereditary.
Yes.
So you need to have those conversations to prepare, other family members to deal with it or whatnot. And we see that in a lot of the Black community. We just don't like to talk about it. We definitely don't like to talk about it because we think of it in such a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And with it being thought of in that negative way, it can stop someone from seeking the help that they may need. And another thing too that's very, very important is, yes, pray, but also get you some help as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not saying, when you do that, you're not saying that God can't move. You're not taking that power away from him. Because when we have certain illnesses, like you said, we do pray for healing, but we also go to the doctor, to get assistance with whatever we're going. So we need to get that way with our mental health too. And then a lot of times I want to say this is, we overlook some things in our children as well that are displayed at a young age. And we overlook it as well. Oh, they just like their daddy, or oh, they just like their grandma, or whatnot. And then we kind of start adapting, not just with the children, but also with the adults. We adapt our action, our lives around them instead of actually addressing the issue. And that is the big part, because then some of those issues can lead to bigger things. We're going to, lead to suicide. Some mental illnesses can cause a person to act out in not a good way, especially when you're dealing with schizophrenia and stuff, So we've got to get to a place where we're able to deal with it and take the negativity out of it instead of shunning a person.
I think the biggest issue that I see, a lot of you guys know that I am a counselor and I'm also a certified life coach. The biggest problem that I see within our culture is this: one, the shame, and we don't want to talk about it. We like to conceal. Y'all know I'm gonna say this, and everybody got a big mama that told y'all this. What goes on in this house, what stays in this house. And what's stayed in this house is killing us as a people. We're not talking about what's going on. Like Melody said, you're adapting to the abnormal behaviors of that person, learning how to adapt around them instead of getting them some help or suggesting that they get help. And then when you see these behaviors in another family member or child, we say, well, you act just like so-and-so. Well, guess what? They have a disorder probably that has not been diagnosed. And now that child has the same disorder. That probably won't get diagnosed because we don't want the stigma of, I'm going to get some help from a therapist, or I'm going to get some help from a counselor, or I'm going to get some help from a life coach. If you can go to the MD when your tooth is hurting to get your cavities cleared, to solve that problem, is no different. Some things you don't have to pray about. You see the bad behavior, you see that it's some abnormalities, go get it checked. If your tooth is hurting, you know Crest is not going to fix it. You got to go to the dentist. You make an appointment. Let me see why this pain is here. But again, the stigma behind getting help, because what do we say? Oh, so-and-so, they just, they a little crazy. They've been crazy all their life. Well, nobody wants to be labeled as crazy. And let me say this: because you are dealing with a mental issue or a mental disorder, you are not crazy. Because in my DSM-5, it says this: low self-esteem can be diagnosed. Because a lot of people walk around here with low self-esteem, and it's not a mental disorder, but it could be you can go and get some help for it. So we have a lot of things that we need help for that we don't go get help for. We're quick to take our kids to go get some pills because the doctor said they have ADHD, and we'll pump them up with pills, and that's because it's normal now. It's okay. And a lot of times those kids don't have ADHD. You need to change their diet. And sometimes they, especially little black boys, I don't know, children, they supposed to run and jump. You teach them not to run and jump in the house. You teach them not to run and jump when you go out. You train them. You want them to be little statues. You teach them to respect adults. A lot of that stuff that we call ADHD, and a lot of times, and I don't know how I got on ADHD, but that's something that's popular in our culture with our children. We're quick to get that to. It's attention deficit. A lot of times those children are acting out because they need your attention. Get off of your cell phone. Get off that TV. Stop spending time with every boo and baby that come around and spend time with your child. Now, I don't know who that's for, but I said it. But that's what's wrong with a lot of those children. They need your attention. They need your attention. It's attention deficit. That means they're not being attended to. They're not getting the necessary attention that they need to grow and thrive as a child during their developmental age stages. And
And
the
I'm
attention is not go sit your A down. The attention is not go sit your stupid self down. Because that's what a lot
and
of y'all do. Oh, you get on my. That's not the attention that you give your child. Go ahead, Melody. I
let me
got on
say
my
this.
sermon for the day already.
Let me say this, and maybe this is something we do need to address because we do know some children are going to be returning to school. But let me say this, I know all about that personally. When my child was in elementary, my oldest child, she's always, I was just saying this earlier to Tar, she's always, before she came in this world, been a very active child. Very, very active. And at one point when she was in elementary, the school had contacted me and my husband, and they was like, well, we need to put her here because we believe this is the issue and whatnot. And we've had her, we tested her at the school and stuff. But I was just like, no, I know my child. This child is a very active child. She's a very bright child. I don't think she fits into the actual criteria for this guideline. So I went out, got my own testing done with a professional. And you know what he said? There's nothing wrong with that child. What that child needs is to be stimulated by her teacher. The work, because she was a good student, a very good student. He said she's finishing her work fast because she know it, and then she needs something to do because she's bored. So
Yeah.
when a child is bored, they gonna talk, they gonna play, they gonna be mischievous. So I had to have this conversation with the teacher and the other officials at the school and let them know, hey, no, we're not gonna put my daughter in these classes. This is not where she gonna go. You need to, let's sit down and come up with a plan as to what we can do to keep her stimulated in this class, to keep her in a position where she won't distract other kids because she done her work, done aced it. She ready to talk and play. So parents, we do have to play a very important part in our children. And I always stress, listen to your children sometimes. Sometimes when our kids come home, and we know if we got, I hate to say, we know if we have a very active child and a child with a big personality. That's what I like to call it. A child with a big personality. You know your child. Listen to the teachers, but also listen to your children and take it and assess it from there. But put the effort in because my thing, and I learned from that, it takes a special type of person to be a teacher. They got to have a heart of a teacher because they got to be able to deal with all of those different personalities at one time. And children are children. They're going to be children. They're going to do children things. And we have to allow them to be able to do that in a healthy way to be children. But I'm glad you mentioned that because we do see so many kids get labeled in schools and get put in programs at school,
Yes.
especially our young African American male kids. Listen to your kids sometimes, and then I even learned some schools you got to even call before you could do a pop-up. No, ma'am, it's not a pop-up if I got to call you first. Become active, be known at your school and do those pop-ups because you need to be able to catch that teacher in her raw form to see what's going on in that classroom. And teachers can have jealous hearts against children. So you have
Oh,
to
that's
listen to,
definitely. Yes.
yeah, you have to listen to your kids sometimes. We do have very, very good teachers out there. There are some really good, strong teachers. And then there are some that,
They don't need to be teaching.
yeah. So I'm glad we did cover that because, kids can be labeled real quick.
Yes, exactly.
simply because the adult don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. And then let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go back to depression, anxiety. You have trauma. People experience trauma in early childhood, as adolescents, teenagers, and those things affect them. Trauma affects your brain pathways. It does. And it affects it even more when it's repeated trauma or the trauma is intense when you're in your developmental stages. So it can cause psychological issues as you get older. Allow your children to be honest. Allow them to express themselves. Listen, we have become a world so confined to looking good. Even as adults, we have issues. People go through bad relationships. They're dealing with fear, especially during this pandemic. You have so many people that's been isolated, depression, fear because of their fear this COVID-19. Their fear, they have so many fears. They fear they lost their job, so the anxiety of that, and they're not being treated in the African American culture, especially with those people that were baby boomers and that baby boomer age. They don't understand that what depression is. Their idea, and I'm talking about in the African American culture, a lot of them believe if you're depressed, all the thing you gotta do is get busy. Go get your job. Go do this. Go. No, 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 no. Depression is it's people that I call functioning depressed. They are functioning depressive people. So you can adapt to being depressive. I was depressed and didn't know I was depressed until I came out of my. It became my normal. Didn't realize that I was depressed because that's something that's not talked about in our culture. We look past certain things. We have to be able to address when we see symptoms of depression, when we see symptoms of anxiety, when we hear certain things, we have to educate ourselves. And let's just go on into it. The young lady that recently died, killed herself, her and her two babies. We don't know what happened because nobody said it. But I think she had 2 10-month-old twins. We don't know, but we do know postpartum depression is real. I know people personally that have dealt with postpartum depression. Depression can come from just a chemical and hormonal imbalance. So we think things have to happen all the time. Things don't always have to happen. Your diet can directly affect your hormones and your chemicals in your body that will cause you to go into a depression. When you're pregnant, your hormones are everywhere.
Everywhere.
So don't add on if there were some issues. There may have been some underlying issues before. And we're not saying it because I'm not diagnosing anybody. We're just saying because we see this all the time. This is not anything new in the African American culture. We just see it home now. We just see that home now. And we say, oh, that person was just crazy. No, that person was depressed. And depression hurts. It's a physical and psychological weapon against that person. And if a person is dealing with depression, where it be postpartum depression, and nobody knows what it is, because especially as mamas and me moms and cousins, oh girl, you gonna be all right. You just this, you just sad, you gonna adjust. No. You have to listen. If a person is tired and and complaining and out of tune and not interested, and that's not their personality, and you see they drinking or they sleeping or have no interest, those are signs of depression. When they used to have a bubbly personality, we got to look at all of that. We cannot be afraid to get people the help that they need. They need this because it's killing us as a people. Silence is the worst disorder in the African American community. Keeping your mouth shut because we don't want to talk. And that's why we have talk therapy, because we're going to address those issues real raw and relevant, because those issues are not being addressed. You have males and females that have been molested as children multiple times, and now they're adults, and they may be strung out on drugs, or they may be have other addictions, and instead of you trying to find out, we point the finger. Oh, how did they get this way? You don't know what people are dealing with. You don't know what people are dealing with, and you're not asking the right questions. We don't have enough grace and mercy to say, hey, what's wrong? And sometimes, Melody, you said it, we mask it so long, we don't know. A lot of times they don't know where the pain is coming from. They don't know where it's coming from, because they put so much in that closet to try to shut that pain down. They have so many layers, they don't know exactly where it came from. And it takes time to pull away all of that stuff that they've added onto their life to cause this pain before you can get to the core issue.
And one thing about depression too, we have to remember, depression is not just a one-day thing. It may not be a week thing. It may not be a month thing. People can walk around depressed for years.
We call that persistent depression disorder.
For years they can walk around. But again, a lot of that goes back to they are at that point they are functioning in their depression.
Just like we have functioning alcoholics and functioning
drug
addicts, they go to work every day like it's nothing wrong. They've learned how to adjust to it.
So we have to ask those questions, and sometimes we have to get to a point or have someone in our lives that we're comfortable enough to talk to express things to. And then another thing we have to realize, if you feel like you don't have that person in your life, seek help. Most of the jobs these days offer the employee assistance program, where you can go talk to someone, so many visits at no particular price. Because one, your job wants you healthy, because they don't want you to come to work and act a fool. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Yes. They want your mental state to be in a good place also. So most jobs do offer that at no additional cost to you, to use that program. And I even think Medicaid may cover the ability to go see someone.
They do.
They do. It's so many visits. So get that help. There's nothing wrong with getting that help. And then there is nothing wrong if mama was schizo, granddaddy had this going on, auntie had this going on. Go sit down and talk to somebody and say, you know what, I have this in my family.
Or if you think you had it, because a lot of them weren't diagnosed. So if you think you have some mental or history of mental disorders in your family that hadn't been diagnosed, get checked.
Yeah, go sit down. It's not a bad thing. I can't stress this enough to people. We've got to stop putting these negative labels on things, because what happens is it can lead to something so detrimental, and then it can start affecting a person's mental when something detrimental happens, because you're sitting there and you think, you know what, I did see that. I did recognize that in a person. And when I did an interview last year with this talk show, I had walked around years in a state of depression. And once I came out of my depression, the first thing people said is, "Oh, you look so different," because I did have a different look to me during that time when I was in my depressed state. I was heavier. I wasn't particular about what I put on or anything. I actually looked older during that time than I do now. And people started, "Oh, you look so different now," whatnot. And I always say, don't say that, because if you saw something on me, why did you not love me enough to say, "You know what, baby? Is everything all right? What's going on?" You know what I'm saying? So
Yes,
if
definitely.
you see it, or even if you suspect it in somebody, it's a way to have a conversation with that person and show genuine concern for
Mhm.
that person. And then if it's some others, if you've got to take what some may consider drastic measures to get that person some help. And the reason I'm speaking on that is because we all see what's going on with Kanye right now. There are ways that they can get him help. There are legal ways that they can get him the help that we want. But a lot of times we fall into it. Well, I'll feel bad if I do it that way. Or I don't want to do it that way, because how are they going to feel behind, after this or during this, that I had to take those measures? But what if you don't take those measures?
Yeah.
Because usually those things, they are displayed in one form of another. Actually talk to somebody, and I'm gonna say this also from talking to people. Sometimes we need to question ourselves, because we may not actually be depressed. Some of us just may be broke. We done seen that meme going around, because sometimes we think, you get the feeling low because you have triggers. Let your money get low, you get the feeling low. You know what I'm saying? Let that relationship not end well. You get to feel in a certain type of way. And sometimes we think we're in depression, but no, it's just that you need to deal with that breakup, or you need to deal with your finances as to how you won't be feeling a little bit low, a little bit mad, because your money messed up. That's why it's important to talk to somebody and get a true identification of what's going on.
Because feeling low is not always depression. That is so
Yeah,
true.
feeling
We
low
do
is
have
not
to learn
always
how
depression.
we do have to learn how to distinguish the two, the difference. And the only way that comes, educate yourself, people. You have to really educate yourself on mental issues. We have to we cannot be afraid to talk about those things that we see in our family, those things that we've seen around us, and we keep sweeping under the rug. I hear this all the time because it became a popular. Oh, so and so bipolar. Look, most of y'all don't know what the criteria for bipolar is to say that somebody's bipolar. It takes more than them just, acting crazy to say that they're bipolar. And some of them have, multiple morbidities of disorder. So you just can't say somebody is bipolar. We quick to say, "Oh, bipolar." A lot of times, what I see, what my experience, people say, "Oh, they're bipolar." They're not bipolar. They have a narcissistic personality. They're narcissistic.
And that's really on the rise right
It's always been there. We just we just
now.
looked over it because we have not been able to identify what it is. We've called it other things. We've labeled it, we've overlooked people that are bipolar, that are schizophrenic, that are schizoaffected, that have narcissistic personalities, that deal with low self-esteem or exalted self-esteem. We look over all of this and just, oh, it's just how so and so is. That's just how they are. Their cousin was like that. Their daddy was like that. Those people probably had mental health issues that never got diagnosed. and they drank themselves to death, or they commit suicide, or they become drug addicts or sex addicts, because that's a disorder also.
Yeah.
So we have to look at these things for what it is and stop overlooking and sweeping up under the rug, and educate ourselves as a culture, as a Black American culture, on mental health issues so that we can know how to help. Now, that doesn't mean every time you see somebody, you can, oh, that's so and so. You're not a professional. You can't, don't try to diagnose people because you saw or you heard something or you read something on Google. Go, if you see there's an issue, go get them some help. Go get them some help, because every mental health issue does not need a therapist. Everybody that has a mental health issue, because some of them need life coaches. Some of their mental health issues because they don't know how to do life. They've never been taught. They need a plan. And once they get a plan and learn how to implement it, or they had an issue that they needed some help with that they never got over with their mom or their dad or something that happened. So you have a lot. I deal with clients all the time that have dealt with trauma, and they still that 10-year-old little boy or that 16-year-old little girl. And when something comes up, they go back to that. And if you never heal from that 6-year-old little girl, that 10-year-old little girl trauma, that 16-year-old little girl trauma, you take that into that 40, 50, 60-year-old grown woman issues.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. You have women that I know that I've dealt with that are in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. They are still dealing with the color of their skin. They are still dealing with colorism within the African American culture because they were called the little black girl, the little black nappy headed self. They are still dealing with this at this age in their life because they never dealt with it before. Or you still a little fat girl. You still got little nappy hair, and everybody else had curly hair. We traumatize children with our words. You know that I say this, and I promise you, it is so true, you guys. You know, when we were growing up, we used to tell that lie, and it's a lie, L-I-E, a lie. Sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. I don't know who came up with that lie. Y'all find out who brought that, who made that saying up, that lie. That's a lie. Because if you fight me and you hit me with a stick of a stone, I may bleed and I may bruise, but I'm gonna heal up, and I'm not gonna remember that anymore after a while. But if you cut me with your tongue, I'm gonna bleed forever. Because every time I hear something or I think about it, that cut that you cut me with your tongue, I'm gonna continue to bleed. So it's gonna hurt. Every time I think about it, I'm gonna be recut and recut and recut and recut and recut. So we have told this lie. The tongue is a weapon that kills people more so than knives and bullets. That tongue of yours. And we have to be very careful. So we have people that are walking around with what we call word hurt. Not cause somebody beat them up or stepped on their toe, but they're walking around with word hurt. And they're dealing with low self-esteem. They're hypersexual.
And,
They
and let me say,
shopaholics. Go ahead, Melanie. Mm-hmm.
let me add this. There's a couple of things I want to say. When you were speaking about colorism, that's a real issue. in the African American community, and we could do a whole show on colorism and body shaming um,
Yes.
among the African American community. But also, when you speak of words, those words that we've heard um, in the past that have caused us pain, I'm going to say pain, flat out pain, or caused us to have to deal with fear, we continually repeat that to ourselves. Because you'll always see that I always say most of the time, remember how you're talking to yourself. Because we then begin to hurt ourselves with our words. And I'm not talking about what we're physically saying out of our mouth, but what we're repeating in our heads.
Yes.
We have to also be gentle the way we talk to ourselves. Because I thought that the mind, the mind is a a very complex thing. So if you're not talking to yourself in a positive way, meaning your thoughts, that is also leading to other things. So we have to be careful how we talk, the conversations that we have with ourselves. And again, I'm not talking about what you physically say out of your mouth. I'm talking about those conversations that's going on your head. And no, that's not crazy, because everybody got a conversation going on in their head about themselves, how they feel about somebody else, or whatnot. And a lot of this, Tara, I'm a venture to say this, is because we as a people have become limited, fearful, in having real conversation.
Oh, yes.
We don't have real conversation with people. Now, you of course you can't have real conversation with everybody, because everybody ain't ready for your story. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can't deal with your story. Everybody can't deal with your pain. But it's so important. And people, let me say this right quick. People are so quick to say, take it to the Lord. Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you need a physical person here to be able to talk to. And we need to know how to be just a listening ear sometimes. Because then we can know what a person may be dealing with. We're just not having those real conversations anymore.
Can I interject and let you, because I want to let you hit on that. So often people don't want to spend money to go get help for their mental issues. They don't want to, I don't want to talk to somebody. I don't want to talk to a stranger and tell them my personal business. But you'll call your friend and tell them or your so-called friend, and you'll tell them all your business. And they give you error information and cause your bad situation to be worse. Why not go and get some help with someone that's trained, that does not have a bias? Because your friend is going to give you information from their past experiences,
Which may
out
not
of
be
their
good.
broken. They're going to tell you information from their broken lenses and their cloudy lenses, and they're going to give you information that can cause your bad situation to be worse. Instead of going somewhere that a person that's trained, that's not going to have a bias towards who you are and what you're saying in your past or your story, that can actually help you identify your pain and give you a strategy to help you strategize and overcome whatever it is that has been plaguing you. We'll pay for some Gucci shoes, but we won't pay to get some mental health. We will pay for a Lexus, but we won't pay for our mind and our thinking and have peace in our mind. We have to get this thing right. Your big house, your nice car, your Gucci, your Louis Vuitton is not going to help you when you cannot sleep at night, because your mental issues are plaguing you. It's plaguing you. We have to change our mindset. Listen, your thoughts and emotions control your behavior. Those thoughts, like Melody said, those thoughts that you're thinking at home, that's what's creating your world. And I say, and I share this all the time. You know, you keep saying, Johnny, get on my nerves. Susie, get on my nerves. Every time Johnny and Susie come around, guess what? They're going to get on your nerves. Because you keep telling yourself that. You have to change your thinking to change your life. Go ahead, Mel, because you know I can go on a tangent.
Well, you pretty much, you said a mouthful. And let me just say this to piggyback. When you're talking about, we'll go buy those Gucci shoes, we'll go buy the big house, and there's nothing wrong with it. I like Gucci.
Right. You know I'm
But
cheap.
you have to have everything. You have to have things in proper perspective. You have to have things in proper perspective and understand your why that you're doing it. Because a mental illness can also have you going to buy those Gucci shoes and those big houses and stuff. They can cause you to go do that because certain things are not in proper perspective. And then when you're getting in there, or let me say this, that personality to be the type of person to wear that, because see, these personalities can get you in trouble too. What we just simply think, oh, that's their personality. Where you're this way with a certain crowd and you're doing things to be with that certain crowd, but when you get by yourself, you're not genuinely that person and you're unhappy because you feel like they don't know the real me. They can't see the real me. I've been this to them for so long. So your mind is a very complex thing. It plays a big role in how you live, your actions, how you spend your money, what your stressors are, your triggers are, all of it. So take the time and seek the assistance because you may understand why you broke. You make enough money, but you can understand why you broke if you go sit down to somebody and talk to somebody. You may be broke because you're trying to appease and please in that personality, when in all actuality, that's not you.
Listen, let me tell you something. I have people. Let me tell you something. When you're dealing with mental illness, because mental illness are not all diagnosable. They're not all diagnosable. If you spend it all, if you making $1,000 and you spending 995, you need to sit down with somebody. You need to sit down with somebody. You blowing it. When I say spend it, I mean blowing it. If you get it and you blowing it every week on partying and drinking and shopping at the mall to try to impress your broke friends, you need to sit down with somebody. You're dealing with some low self-esteem issues. Social media has become a breeding ground for people to live a lie. It's become a breeding ground for that. You have so many people, they can go to somebody else's house or stand in front of somebody's car and say, this is mine. Look, why do you have to lie about what you have? If you ride around in a paid for hoopty, clean your hoopty up and ride around in it. It's paid for. Because you don't know that person that's driving around in that nice 750 Beamer, they eating peanut butter and jelly, and all their clothes is in their car because that's all they have. Stop trying to look at what other people have. You don't know that those designer clothes that they have that came from the secondhand store. You don't know that. You don't know where it came from. You don't know that with that big old house that they living in, that all their money going to their house, and when they walk in the door, it's no furniture in there. They sleeping on the floor and eat noodles at night. You don't know that, but you working your neck to try to follow them.
That's true.
Why? Because you looking at the outside. You don't know what kind of what kind of anxiety that they are dealing with, that they can't sleep at night, that they taking pills to go to bed and taking pills to get up. All because you're dealing with issues related to what you see on social media, trying to keep up with the Kardashians, hip hop, love and hip hop, Atlanta, and everything else. And why? You don't see that those people on there crazy? They got issues. Now, yes, I call them crazy. Do you not see that they need that? All of those people have mental issues. Why would you want to follow behind that? That stuff, those people have mental issues that need to be diagnosed. And some of them just need to sit down with a look. They need some life skills. Some of them just need some life skills. Period. We got to deal with this, y'all. We got to deal with keeping this stuff under the rug. We got to deal with those children. We got to deal with those parents. We got to deal with those grandparents that we love so much, but they live double and triple lives, and we know it. And we want to we don't. No, let's talk about it, because now you see 2 or 3 generations down the road, so and so acting just like grandmama did. But grandmama and them lied about what they were doing.
Well, you know, there's another name for that. That's what they call generational curses.
Generations. But we don't even talk about generational curses. We don't even talk about that within the community. We sweep that up under the rug. We just say, oh, that's just how they are. No, it's not. No, it's not. Even when we, and I'm stepping a little bit, even when we talk about personality, when people say that's just how I am, not necessarily. That may be how you have become from the past, the hurts, the pains, the bad experience, the traumas in your life. That may not be you. Because a lot of times I found this out in life, and when I work with people, they're keeping it 100 is a lie. They're keeping it truthful is really a lie. So you have to find this out. You make sure that your truth is not really a lie, because a lot of your truths, a lot of y'all truths that you say, oh, this is my truth. It may be really a lie. It's not a truth until you can prove it. Make it prove it. Make it prove it. Prove that's the truth for you, because just because you feel it, listen to me. Just because you think it, just because that was your perception, because your perception can always be wrong, it doesn't mean that it's the truth. It may be your truth, but it may not be the truth. I'm going to tell you how the old people, what my mama and my grandmama used to say to us: believe none of what you see and half of what you hear. No, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. And the moral behind that is, just because you see it and just because you hear it, you can hear it in a way. I can tell you that you stupid in a way that's real nice, and you won't take it negative. But I can call you stupid with an attitude and roll my eyes, and you might want to fight me. So you can't just always believe what you hear, because tone, environment, situation plays a part in all of that. It plays a part in all of that. So just because you hear it and see it, and somebody else, yeah, I saw it too, it doesn't mean that that's the truth. You have to investigate everything in life. Investigate it, because sometimes we see stuff out of our hurt. And I call out of those foggy, dirty glasses, out of that past hurt. So we have to investigate it and make sure. Let me see what I'm hearing. Let me make sure what I'm hearing is right. Let me make sure what I'm seeing is right. Investigate it, because then you walk around carrying that hurt for years and those thoughts for years. And the person that you hurt, that you're mad with or you're offended with, they don't even know what you're talking about. And when you bring it up to them, finally, they don't even know. And they're like, well, I didn't mean it that way. And you've been carrying that around for 10, 20, 30 years. And it wasn't even what you thought it was. So we have to be careful. We have to be very, 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 very careful. I say, because I have a strong tone. When I get passionate about something, I'm already loud and I'm already country. That's them two things that ain't gonna change. Loud and country, not change. Not gonna apologize. Unapologetic. Loud and country, not gonna change for me. But I know when I'm passionate about something, it can come off to people that don't know me as aggressive and angry. And if you don't know me and that don't know that I have a passion for certain things, people will say, well, you're kind of aggressive or you're mean. No, I got a passion for it. I have a passion for it. So you can't always look at a person and say, oh, they this and they that and they this and that. You can't always do that without knowing the person and knowing the backstory about around the situation.
Yeah. Well, we are almost out of time for this week, but one thing I do want to say, if you feel that you need to talk to somebody, Tara and I, we are both life coaches, certified life coaches. Tara is also a therapist. So reach out to us and we can help you. If we can't help you, we will point you in the right direction, most definitely, where you can get the help that you need to make a change. We just can't be silent on it anymore. We can't be silent. We have to remove the negative from the equation because we have a lot of people out here that are afraid. A lot of people are hurting because of it. And we're also watching it go down through our generations. And we're not addressing the issues properly and dealing with it. So at some point, you do have to get to where you say, you know what? It's time to stop this. It's time to deal with this and do it before it's too late.
Yeah.
Do it before it's too late because we don't want to find ourselves on that end saying, I did see it. I wish I had done something to help them.
Yeah.
Instead of just standing by watching people hurt. To learn how to become a listening ear. Help people get the help that they need. Also, basically, all of it boils down to if you genuinely love a person, help them. Because you can't genuinely love them and see them in pain and know they're in pain and hurt. So get the help that you may need or help someone else get the help that they may need. Yeah. So if there's nothing else, Tara, I think we're good for this week.
Yes, you guys, this has been Talk Therapy. You know, our conversation is real, raw, and relevant. We try to keep it real. Well, we do keep it real. And we enjoyed you guys. Make sure, hey, if you know somebody that can benefit from this conversation, again, you can reach out to us and you can send this like and share this video with your friends. And let's talk about it. Leave a comment. Share your thoughts. We want to hear from you. Until next Tuesday, this has been Talk Therapy.
Thank you so much for joining us. Come back next week for more real, raw, and relevant information here at Talk Therapy. Sister, let's talk.